All right, we are with Captain Wes Pulver. Cap, you were at the helm of it all. The last time we spoke, it was a hole in the ground. Tell me where the U.S. Coast Guard Museum is today.
Well, the good news, John, we filled the hole. So we are working hard on constructing our National Coast Guard Museum. The building itself is the steel is up. It's a total of 6 floors, over 110 feet above the Thames River in here in New London, Connecticut. And what we've got left is we've got to put up the walls. So and then install the systems. But the walls is our next step, the envelope system, and we've already started that process. We'll have it done by the end of this summer. And we're excited about potentially turning over the building to the U.S. Coast Guard, gifting it to our federal government by the end of this year. So we're excited about that because that gets us ever closer to opening this wonderful museum.
So tell me how that works. So it was self-funded through donations, and then when it's done and built, you hand it over to the government. And they run it for us, right?
Well, there's also been some governmental money as well. So it's a split between private fundraising as well as obviously some federal appropriations and a little money in the reconciliation. The goal was not to burden the U.S. Coast Guard itself with a large debt for building a national museum. So between the private donations, and we're just under $60 million in private donations, and then federal funding. Between the two, we've been able to, work the money together, sign all the contracts, and again, it will be completed the building itself will be completed by the end of this year. And then the Coast Guard, hopefully with the museum as one of their assets, or at least in the process of becoming an asset of the U.S. government, then they'll start installing their exhibits and the storylines that they've been working on. So you can see even though a lot of public and private both involved, it's clearly a public-private project together, but at the same time, the Museum Association was brought on so that the funding didn't come directly from the Coast Guard, and it's been a combination of private and federal.
What a fabulous way to go. Just wonderful.
I think it's worked real well. It's been a lift. I mean, it's been incredible support from the federal government and support from over 8,000 donors. So we've got a lot of different colors of money coming through us, but we're able to put it all together, and we can't wait to complete the building and again then watch the Coast Guard install their exhibits and storylines, which are we've had a lot to do with, but the Coast Guard's got lead on that, and then they open their museum, a national asset, a national platform, in this case for our U.S. Coast Guard.
Speaking of exhibits, I saw them inching that helo into the project. Right, the building's not done yet, but it looks like the helo's in place.
Yeah, we made that command decision that we'd get the helo in there before we put the walls up. So it was sort of a timing issue. Coast Guard and by the way, the Coast Guard executed that. So an example of a private-public, we're building the museum while they're taking one of their aviation assets that was specifically refurbished to put into the museum. And we put her in well before the walls are up. She's actually sitting right now on level 3. And she's going to wait till we get a little more done with the atrium itself, and then they'll go ahead and slide her into place very carefully and suspend her.
Probably quite the exhibit already for passerbys and for those who boat by the progress, right?
It's fun. People point. They're like, "Hey, is that a helicopter?" Right now it's covered, but for the first week it was not. And but it is exciting. I mean, even before we open the museum, you talk about free advertisement. We'll have a spotted helicopter, most likely by the end of the summer. People will go by and say, "Holy cow, is that really a Coast Guard helicopter?" And yes, it is. And it's one that was served since 1990. It's been taken out of service, and now it's going to serve in a different way. It's going to be that iconic image of the helicopter, and soon to have a rescue swimmer suspended from the helicopter itself. That's not going to go up right away, but that'll be there too. So we're excited about it. Really, that's the first of many hopefully awe-inspiring exhibits and artifacts that'll be in the museum.
So that sounds like it's going to be the star of the exhibit show, but tell me about some of the other exhibits.
Well, it's really neat. It's the atrium itself. It's working with the state and the historical preservation because we're in a historic area. The idea of having an open glass atrium. So when folks come in addition to the helicopter with the rescue swimmer, we anticipate in that atrium itself, maybe a small boat, a historic vessel, potentially a rescue swimmer is rescuing a family. All those are going to be before people even enter into the museum proper, which is on the first level. At that point, the Coast Guard's working on an unbelievable statue that sort of reflects the service for generations. They're working on media. There's going to be a store in there, so if folks want to take away art, toys or artifacts or things like that they can purchase. And then you get into the decks themselves when you have an introduction to the Coast Guard, and this is on levels 2, 3, and 4. Introduction to the Coast Guard, lifesavers around the globe wing, on the defenders of our nation wing, enforcers on the seas, champions of commerce, and protectors of the environment. The Coast Guard's going to tell the story through those 5 very disparate, different missions, but it's something our Coast Guard men and women do every day. So we're excited to be able to put that on display, and that doesn't get to the top floor with the event center and the simulation center where our youth can go in and maybe do that rescue in a simulator. So it's just going to come together wonderfully, and we can't wait for the museum to be open.
Now, this isn't the only Coast Guard museum, but this is the first national Coast Guard museum, correct?
That's correct. So the Coast Guard has a small museum at the Coast Guard Academy. A private nonprofit runs a museum in Barnstable, Mass, up there on the Cape. Pacific Northwest has one, Wabi Island in San Francisco. A bunch of small, a few thousand square feet museums. This is 100,000 square feet. So you can see how we'll be more of a national level museum with similar to the National Museum of the U.S. Army or the Marine Corps, the very large museums, but we intend to partner with those smaller museums, more of the regional touches, so we can get folks to go there, come to us, and combine our efforts. Because at the end of the day, we're all trying to tell the Coast Guard story. We want to let the American public and know what the Coast Guard does. We want all the Coast Guard veterans to feel how appreciated they are. So it's sort of a combined mission there. And we're going to work together with all those regional museums so that folks know that there's more than one place to go to learn about what the Coast Guard's done for our nation since 1790.
So you've been there from the start, from blueprint on, right? What did it feel like when you first saw the steel go up and you see the building coming together? You must have been somewhat awe-inspired by just, wow.
It's exciting, but to make you laugh, John, it just reminds me of how much more we have to do. So the steel, we were able, as you said, we created the hole in the ground to get all this, all the subterranean work there. We had to build a bulkhead and fill, and that felt great to get it going. But then the question was, okay, let's make sure we have everything set so that we can, we can get the steel coming out of the ground. And what about the systems for the walls? And by the way, we're the generous donors kind of come to make sure that we can fully fund the construction. So it's really never, we haven't taken a victory lap yet, but once in a while, it's nice to take a moment and reflect on what we've been able to accomplish. And, on behalf of my board, there's 11 board members, and of course, our team of 14 to 15 of us right now. We're real proud of what we've been able to accomplish, but the job's not done yet. Mission's still out there for us to complete it. And that first mission is getting the building turned over to the Coast Guard, but there's more to it than working with the Coast Guard to make sure it's world class. We want to make sure the Coast Guard will open and shut the doors, but the funding for those speakers, for the consumables for the kids, for the vessels on the waterfront, that's going to come from the nonprofit. So there's still a role for us because we're not just committed to get it open. We're committed to make sure it's a world-class museum for our nation.
Cap, you can take half a victory lap. You're halfway there. You're past halfway there. How far along do you think you are at this point?
To opening, we're at a solid 75 to 80% to opening. So we're feeling really good. The partnership with the Coast Guard is greater every day. So we have a transition to sort of pass on what we've learned, make sure that they're ready to open the doors. They have some contracts they got to get online for the staffing of it. We have contracts to get online for the business aspects of it. So there's still a lot to be done. Okay, I'll take a little bit of a victory lap, but it's not going to be a big one, John. But because we're real excited, but we just want to make sure we open, and it's just world class from day one, and we're committed to that.
Now, tell me, can the public still donate to the project, or has the funding level been
Absolutely.
reached? I'm sure they can still donate, right? How do they go about doing that?
Well, first off, absolutely. cgmuseumassociation.org is our webpage. And then honestly, they can contact us anytime, Google us. We're right there to take a donation. Having said that, yes, we have effectively funded the building itself, but there's so much more to be done. The Coast Guard is funded to get the exhibits up, the baseline simulators up. But everything above that is going to be done with private donations, including the waterfront. We anticipate a lot of work there. There's some other buildings to kind of expand the Coast Guard in the region. We're working with local building owners to get in to help the Coast Guard with a recruiting station, another ship store, a place we can do overnights with kids. There's a lot more to be done, especially on the programming side, engaging youth, engaging adults. That right there is not part of the Coast Guard budget. So that's something that we're going to put a lot of time and effort over the next year so that when folks come in, it's not just a story and an artifact. It's an experience. It's a like a young, like I think of my granddaughter going through the museum, goes through like a qual process, ends up in a simulator. And when she leaves with a magazine about her story, and she leaves with a Coast Guard pin, and all those things she leaves with will be funded by private donations. The federal government really not, set up to do that. So that's something we're going to do to take it from a great experience to a world-class experience.
And as with all national museums, the museum will be free, correct?
That is correct. That is correct. It's a free museum, and we look forward to people having the opportunity to come. It's also what's really nice about this museum is its location. It's on Amtrak. It's on Shoreline East, which is the metro. It's right off 95. It's right next to the ferry terminals. There are almost 2.5 to 3 million people that either get on and off a ferry or on and off a train within 200 feet of the museum. So not only is it free, but it's accessible, and that's important for museums. Some are buried away, you don't find them. This is going to be center stage right in the middle of downtown New London on a heck of a transportation hub. So our goal is to capture all those visitors. Not all the first year, it's a lot of people, but we're going to do what we can to capture all those people and have them want to come into the museum.
So for those who don't know, why New London?
First off, it is one of the 10 original home ports of the U.S. Coast Guard, and it is a Coast Guard city. So when folks say why New London, it's a place that just makes great sense. And so one of the historic ports, the academy's here, the Leadership Development Center is here, the Research and Development Center, the small boat stations, the America Tall Ship, the Eagle's here. It's a heck of a Coast Guard hub. That's part of it. And the second part of it, and I say this with a smile, is that in 2003, the Connecticut delegation pulled it off in law, and they were able to put in law that it's going to be a new one in Connecticut. And we've never questioned that decision, but that certainly gave us direction.
And a vessel that is very close to your heart will find its home base here at the museum as well, right?
It is. The Coast Guard, within the bipartisan infrastructure bill, the Coast Guard requested Eagle to be moved to the city pier, which is immediately adjacent to the museum. So when Eagle's in port, and she's underway now and representing our country amazingly this summer, but when she's in port, she will be hopefully at the city pier unless she's doing a major maintenance. And at that point, she'll be part of the museum experience. So folks will see that helicopter. Hopefully, they'll see small boats in the waterfront, and they'll see America's Tall Ship there in the fall, in the winter, and the spring. She's just underway on those summers, but we're just excited to have her adjacent to the museum. And by the way, at a pier that where the revenue cutter Argus moored in 1791, so a similar location of the pier. So there is a historical piece to this as well.
I just envision that. What a vision that will be. What a destination that will be. There's the Bark Eagle, there's the museum, you've got the helo hanging from the ceiling, families, and it's just going to be an amazing place.
We hope that's the case, and we're confident that's the case. It's been putting together what we're trying to get, at the waterfront. We're still working on some other assets that we can have there as well. So we're working hard with the Coast Guard. So it's not just if Eagle's in port, you see a ship. We're trying to work more there. So we've got a lot of work to do this next year. The good news is I'll never say the building is behind us, but the building is on a good glide scope. I'll use a aviation term, and we believe that the building itself will be done by the end of the year, and the installation is a Coast Guard function that we'll assist with. But there's just so much more we want to do, so that when folks come with the family, it's not just a building, it's a platform, it's an experience. It's like more of a campus feel when they walk outside, and they get into New London itself, where there's an old customs house which has Coast Guard artifacts in it, and this New London has so much to offer too. And so we want to make it more of a holistic experience for folks, and we're just excited about the opportunity.
And it's going to be quite the recruitment tool for the future men and women of the United States Coast Guard, correct?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, I had the privilege to serve in a decision I've not regretted ever. Loved having that opportunity, and I hope folks get exposure to something that can make that kind of difference in their life as it made for mine. I mentioned in the campus, and there is a potential of a recruiting station. If nothing more, to learn more about the Coast Guard. But I'm sure folks will get inspired and want to serve the same way many of the heroes that are being recognized in the museum did. That would be wonderful. But again, if they serve in the maritime, if they serve government, if they serve in the STEM fields, maybe they get inspired by the helicopter they want to go fly. Where the magic is, if someone didn't realize they could do that in their life, and then they realize they can and pursue it, that's the magic. If the Coast Guard is part of that, we're thrilled, ecstatic. But if they get excitement from the museum and some other field, maybe it's the Coast Guard Auxiliary and volunteerism, maybe it's a medical about a rescue and they become a doctor, whatever that is, if this inspires anybody to do something great in their lives and do something of purpose, we're thrilled to be a part of that.
Cap, thank you and your team for all that you're doing. I know what this project has been for you and the team. It's a big one. And for sort of telling the story of the United States Coast Guard. And we're happy, all of us here at The Drift are happy to be along for the journey.
No, I appreciate that, John, very much, and appreciate the attention you're bringing to it. Part of this is getting the American public and our New England folks that are all just a drive away to know about what we're trying to do here in New London. It's just a short train ride or drive down, and we can't wait to be open in 2027. We don't have the date yet, working with the Coast Guard on that, but we can't wait to be open and have all the folks watching this broadcast come visit us next year. It'd be wonderful.
We'll be there, Cap. Thanks.
Thanks, John, so much. Thanks for your time, everybody.
The Drift podcast can be found at driftsociably.com or where all fine podcasts are heard.